Hey everyone, welcome back to The Crawl. My name's Brendan, and today we're going to be talking a little bit more about the first-person dungeon crawler that I've had in development for about a year now. The last big devlog I did was in July, and I've done a lot of stuff since then. So I'm going to be kind of cutting this up into a few different sections, and today we're going to be going over the art, and I'll give you guys a little bit of an intro to the setting and overall vibe of what the game is going to be. I also have a few channel and content updates to go over as well towards the end. So yeah, lots to go over today, and yeah, let's get into it. So I mentioned this back in the previous devlog that I did in July, where I mentioned that I was kind of experimenting with some different art styles after I had lost the original project files and had to recreate everything. So I started out like you normally would with any project like this, and I just did a lot of sketches, a lot of little concept stuff, basically just coming up with ideas for robots and tech-related enemies, because as I mentioned, this is a sci-fi game, has kind of a, I guess you could say like a Japanese mech-inspired theme to it, so that's a lot of what you're seeing here, kind of, you know, look like stuff that might be in Gundam or Votoms or even Mega Man or something like that. Those are kind of the things that I'm drawing upon, so you'll see a lot of that in the art style that I'm working with. So from there, after I did those initial sketches, I just started workshopping a lot of different art style ideas. I started out kind of going for some pixel art sprites. Now this is something that I've never done before. I have no familiarity with pixel art, at least I didn't before trying this out. And you know, I thought it looked okay, and some of it was fun to do. It's both easier and harder in ways than I expected it to be, but ultimately I just decided that this wasn't the style for the game that I'm making, and so I ditched that idea. You know, maybe in the future I'll go back to some pixel art stuff for another game project, but from there I decided I had this weird idea that I was going to try and make like a pseudo PS1 3D model, but in 2D. So basically I was looking at some screenshots of like old PS1 games in its native resolution, and noticed that, you know, it basically looks like pixel art. And so I was thinking of doing, I guess you could call it like high-res pixel art to kind of capture that same blocky model feel of old PS1 and 64 and Sega Saturn games. And that was a lot of fun, and I think there's something there, but I think this is something I need to workshop a little bit more. Again, might go back to it in the future. There's definitely something there to this idea, I think, but I decided I'm going to go back to a more, you know, illustrated digital art style like I did for my tabletop game, Super Mutant Slayers. That's what I'm most comfortable with, and as much as I wanted to do something different, ultimately I knew that this is just what I had to do and how I was going to get the game done fastest. And that had some benefits. First of all, I know how to do this art style. As you can see, I'm not a professional by any means, but I feel comfortable drawing and painting like this. And the other benefit is that I can use some of the stuff that I did for Super Mutant Slayers and repurpose it and build off of that for this game. Ultimately, what I ended up with kind of was a hybrid of my style on Super Mutant Slayers and that anime style, and that's kind of where the current art style is for now. And we'll look at quite a few of the enemies that I've designed so far, but you know, this may change in the future. I don't know. Everything that you see in these devlogs, of course, is subject to change, and the game has changed quite a bit in the months since I last talked to you all. So anyway, let's take a look at some of the enemies that I've drawn so far. So starting off, this is what I'm affectionately calling the Grime, which is these enemies are basically, you know, they're like your early low-level fodder enemies that you fight at the beginning of the dungeon, and it's an homage of sorts to the slimes of Dragon Quest and even Final Fantasy and stuff like that, but specifically Dragon Quest. And you can see that I've also got some ideas for maybe like a big boss slime or just a more powerful enemy slime from there. And this was something that I took inspiration from Super Mutant Slayers. This character on the left is actually from the Grime as it appears in Super Mutant Slayers, and on the right is how it appears in my new game, which I have a title that I haven't really decided to announce yet, but we'll get to that in the future. Anyway, so the next enemy that we're looking at is called, tentatively I'm calling it the Worker Bot, and this is, so all of the enemies in this game, as you can see, they have some sort of weird ooze or funguses and mushrooms coming out of them, and it's something called the data blight in this world, and it basically just makes AI and robots kind of go haywire. And so that's who you're fighting against, are these data blight infected robots and drones and that sort of thing. And you can totally see that here with how he has this, this purple coming out of the seams and out of his head and all that stuff. Sorry, there's a dog next door and it won't stop barking. So if you hear a dog, that's what it is. This next enemy I'm calling the Crawler, and you can start to see some of that, that anime vibe really coming out here with some of the, some of the design. And then here is another example of me taking some inspiration from Super Mutant Slayers and editing it to fit this new game's style. So I'm calling this a bug, which is kind of like a data bug, like a bug you get on your computer or another program or something like that. And it's based off of an enemy from Super Mutant Slayers that was called the Paratroid, which itself is an homage to the Metroids in Metroid. So this was just kind of a recolor, and I added some, some data-looking bits to it and some other effects to sell that this is like sentient corrupted data, essentially. You can see that again here in the next enemy, which I'm calling a fish, but with the PH, like phishing schemes and that sort of thing. You can see that there's like a real like data tech hackery vibe going on with the game so far. And I took an enemy again from Super Mutant Slayers and just kind of have been reworking it into something else. And this is unfinished. I don't have a finished version of that, but I just wanted to show off kind of like how my process works here. Like there's two different versions, workshopping different ideas of what this enemy ultimately might look like. In the next couple, we'll see how I've taken an enemy all the way from concept to finish. So this is the security floater bot, is what I'm calling it. And you can see that I have a few different iterations, and we're ending up with something that has more of that mech design coming through. And the Eyewalker also is another enemy here that I took from Super Mutant Slayers, but you wouldn't know it by looking at it, these two versions side by side. So I took this eye crab and I redrew it. And I was kind of okay with the way it turned out, but it was here, this was really the enemy that I was drawing, where I decided that I wanted more of a like cartoony, artistic anime style rather than just an overt digital painting style. And you can really see here, especially in the arms, or the legs rather, and the other mechanical bits, a lot of that, classic 80s, 90s mecha design kind of coming through here. Anyway, that's kind of the majority of the quote-unquote finished sprites. I mean, obviously this stuff could change and evolve over time, but that's sort of where I am right now with the enemies in this game. And, I want to show them off first because it was what I started with. The enemies are what you're going to be looking at the most, other than, the environmental textures in the dungeons. So I really wanted to nail that vibe first. I kind of wanted to really just establish what this world was artistically and visually through the enemy design first. And then from there, I'll draw some friendly characters, and we'll see where it goes from there. But for right now, I'm pretty happy with where the art style is. Anyway, so that's basically where the game is now. I hope you guys are digging the look of it so far. Please give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. All this stuff, of course, is subject to change because making games is really hard. And one of the biggest things that I've struggled with is the infinite number of ways that I could take this game. And so as I've started paring it down and deciding on a particular path or style or vision, it's become a lot easier. So hopefully I'll have a lot more to share in the coming days. But anyway, as I said at the beginning of the video, I do have a couple things I want to talk about just about the channel as well. Obviously, you can tell I'm in a new place. I have a new setup. This is closer to what I really wanted the setup to be when I started this channel. But, I'm still working the kinks out. So if the audio's a little weird or the video's weird, I'm working on it. Hopefully things will be better in the future. But you should expect to see more of me in front of the camera going forward, more informal kind of conversation-y stuff as well, like this. But, that highly edited essays type stuff, it's not going away. It's still going to be here. Speaking of which, I do have more videos like that coming up. It's been slow moving since I moved to a new house. I had to replace my PC completely and build a new one. And I've got some new day job gigs. For those who don't know, I now write at GameSpot.com as well as Popular Science Magazine. And I'm still at Lifehacker as well, and some other places here and there. I just, I'm a freelancer writing for all sorts of places, but GameSpot and Popular Science have kind of become my new mainstays. So if you read those websites or that magazine, you might see my name show up in the byline here and there. As for the Metroid video that I brought up, I promised a few weeks ago, that's still in development. I'm on like version 4 of that script. It's taking a lot longer than expected because of the new work stuff and everything else that has been happening, but it's on its way. It'll be closer in format to the From Software video, but I'm trying to find an angle that really fits with the crawl and with the other kinds of games and ideas that I've been talking about in the channel recently. If you're in the mood for some thoughtful Metroid related content in the meantime, I highly recommend checking out HPR Shredder's recent review of the original Metroid on the Famicom and the NES. It's part of his recent ongoing retro review series. Not only do I think it's an excellent video in general, it's one of the few reviews of the original Metroid that judges the game based on its own merits, rather than against its sequels and remakes like Zero Mission. It's also the only Metroid video that I'm aware of that manages to include a Terrence McKenna quote in a thoughtful and relevant way. I also have to shout out my buddy Tony over at Framework. You might recognize his voice from GameSpot's video content, and now he makes awesome video essays on YouTube, including one about how the Metroid series sparked the Metroidvania subgenre, and another on how Symphony of the Night evolved Castlevania beyond arcade action series and into the second half of the Metroidvania equation. I also have some stuff that is closer to the Final Fantasy XI and Dragon Quest X videos because, a third of you who are watching subscribe to this channel because of my Final Fantasy XI video. That thing is at almost 130,000 views at the time I'm recording this. It's got hundreds of comments. The response to that has been overwhelming. It's my biggest video by far, probably going to be my biggest video maybe ever. I don't know what this channel is going to do, but I'm really grateful for that. And so it's not lost on me that people are subscribing and really interested in the Final Fantasy XI and the Dragon Quest X video. It seems like you guys really like a lot of the same old MMOs that I do. So, I have some ideas of exploring some of that stuff in the future. I'd like to try out streaming maybe with the setup now that I can do that. We'll see. I got some other ideas, just, tons of ideas. I'm very excited. I know I've been rambling a lot. I have a lot of stuff that I've been excited about with the game and with the channel and all that stuff. So if you stuck around this far, thank you so much. If you're new, hi. Check out my other videos. They're a little bit more interesting than this one, I promise. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I have more videos and stuff soon. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next upload.